Did you know there's a fungus that turns insects into zombies? Well, there is. It's called Cortex, and it doesn't just infect ants, it takes control of their brains. It makes them climb to the top of a leaf, clamp down with their jaws, and just wait as the fungus bursts out of their head like something from Alien. But why? So it can rain spores down on the ants' friends. It's nature's most horrifying multiplayer strategy game. And scientists believe this mind-controlling fungus might one day evolve to affect mammals. Yes, that means us. So if your friend starts staring blankly at a mushroom, run fast. In the eerie forest of northern Italy, an adventurous mycologist named Antonio Carbone is searching for rare mushrooms. In the early 2000s, he discovered an unusual specimen unlike any he'd seen before. Its cap was white and fluffy like a sheepdog. Its gills were pale yellow and smooth like fresh shucked oysters. Its stalk was long, slender, and speckled with brown dots like a child's marble-studded cane. And as it spread its fine white mycelium threads across a nearby log, Carbon realized he had stumbled upon a new species of cortex, the deadly parasitic fungus. Cortex, which comes from the Greek word for club, is a genus of over 2,000 species of parasitic fungi that infect arthropods. These creepy crawlies are mostly ants, but they can also be beetles, grasshoppers, cockroaches, and other six-legged invertebrates. The zombifying spores are so tiny they're almost invisible. Each one is smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. Once inside an arthropod, they set up shop immediately, setting two parallel processes in motion. The first is how the fungus takes over the insect's body, and the second is how it hijacks the insect's mind. We already know quite a lot about the process thanks to decades of research on another zombifying fungus called Cordyceps unilateralis, or O. Unilateralis for short. This particular strain has a rather notorious reputation. It's what science fiction movies are made of. It's been called the zombie fungus, the parasite from hell, and even the devil's matchstick. But we'll stick with cortex because that's what it sounds like. When cortex spores land on an unsuspecting host, they secrete a small amount of enzymes, which dissolves the outer shell of the insect's exoskeleton, allowing them to sneak inside. Once inside, the zombifying fungus quickly sets up shop in some of the most vital organs. It takes over the production of steroid hormones that control the insect's molting cycle. If the insect is still growing, the fungus forces it to molt prematurely, trapping it in its final larval stage forever. Then, cortex gradually begins to reprogram the insect's behavior. It turns the insect into what scientists call a fruiting zombie, meaning it's fit for harvesting. Once the fungus is ready to spread, it sends signals to the insect's nervous system, manipulating the legs and antennae until the zombie is locked in place in a fixed position. Sometimes it's standing straight up. Sometimes it's clamped onto a twig or leaf with its jaws. Sometimes it's hanging upside down in a death grip. You get the idea. Once in place, the fruiting zombie stays perfectly still, often for days, waiting for the moment when cortex decides it's time to spread. When it is, the fungus uses the fully charged batteries of the zombie's exoskeleton muscles to launch its spores into the air and infect more of its friends. In the forest, you've heard the sound 1,000 times. It's that clickety-clackety sound that fills the air from late May to early September in the northern hemisphere. The spores fall to the ground below, infecting more insects and starting the process all over again. And that's the first way cortex kills. But there's a second, even scarier reason why you should never eat a mushroom picked by a stranger. If you thought taking over an insect's body was impressive, wait until you hear how cortex controls its mind. We don't know exactly how this works yet, but we have some clues. Like how certain strains of cortex produce psychoactive compounds called phenylacetonetriles, or PAN for short. One of these compounds found in cortex, called paramycophenylacetonetriol, or PPANT, has been shown to affect the behavior of cockroaches. In laboratory experiments, roaches exposed to pea pant started acting weird. They didn't respond to touch or light the way they normally do. Some became stuck in a continuous loop of walking forward. Others couldn't stop turning in circles. In other words, they became zombies. Scientists think that by blocking certain neurotransmitters in the insect's brain, compounds like pea pant can take over their central nervous system and manipulate their behavior. But that's not all. Scientists suspect that cortex produces many other compounds that also influence the insect's mind. And uncovering what those are and how they work is a major focus of Dr. Luciano Maffei's research. He's an evolutionary biologist at the University of Vienna who studies the evolution of host specificity in parasites, which basically means he studies how parasites choose their victims. Mycophenolate tonatriol is one of the most common strategies that Corps uses to control its insect victims, but it's not the only one. Strains that infect ants seem to use chemical signals that mimic the colony's pheromones to take over the colony's central hub, the nest. Once inside, they start to destroy the queen's eggs so no new ants will hatch. Then they tell the workers to leave the nest and forage for food. As the now enslaved workers scurry around the forest floor, the zombified colony slowly crumbles, eventually disbanding completely. But that's not the strangest thing about Cortex. That honor belongs to its ability to turn some of its victims into cannibals. That's right. Certain strains of Cortex turn ants into flesh-eating machines. And they do this by hijacking the ant's major royal jelly gland, or MRJ for short. This gland is used to feed the queen and larvae. And when it senses chemicals coming from outside the colony, it triggers the alarm pheromone. That tells the ants that there's a threat to the colony and it needs defenders. But since the zombifying fungus is in control, it can rewrite that alarm signal to say, "Go eat the nearest ant." And the ant's colony slowly devours itself. Now, here's the really scary part. Some scientists think that one day Cortex could take over our minds. Just because we're bigger than insects doesn't mean we're safe. Take the recently discovered Cortex brame, for example. It infects orb spiders and takes over their minds by hijacking their pedipalps. These are the spider's sensory appendages that look like little feelers. Once the fungus has taken over, it instructs the spider to spin a special kind of web, a zombifying web. The infected spider builds this web in a unique shape and composition, one that will encase it in silk after it dies, creating the perfect environment for the fungus to grow and spread. Now imagine if Cortex could somehow attack you or me and turn us into flesh-eating zombified husks of our former selves. Sure, we wouldn't build webs, but we might do something even scarier. We might try to infect everyone we know. Although there are no known strains of Cortex that infect mammals yet, scientists are worried it's only a matter of time. The fear is that the fungus could jump species by infecting an intermediate host like a bird or a rodent, then make the leap to humans. And yes, you'd probably recognize the symptoms. Infected individuals would start to behave erratically, maybe even violently. And as the infection took hold, they'd become totally unresponsive to their surroundings, totally under the control of the zombifying fungus. Right now, it's just a hypothetical. There are lots of barriers that would prevent Cortex from jumping to humans, but if it did, things could get real ugly, real fast. So if you ever see anyone who looks like they're having a psychotic break while wearing a suspicious mushroom on their head, run fast. You might be the only thing standing between humanity and total zombification. Now check out why cannibalism is actually healthy for your body, or watch why your last meal might kill you.